It's our catch can assembly I've just fitted. Just slightly modified it, put a bracket on the top of it. It has sort of like a universal bracket that doesn't really suit. I would imagine that 99% of cars it wouldn't suit, so I don't know why they bother. I just made a teardrop bracket and welded it onto the top plate and drilled and tapped a hole in this top manifold half and just bolted it on. So it came up all right. Hopefully the bonnet shuts.
The intercooler piping is all finished, so the front bar can be refitted. With the intercooler mounted as far back as possible, we only had to slightly trim the front bumper. This is something that just can't be avoided with most cars. The car is running, but there's still a few more items to be crossed off the list before we can get it tuned, starting with the fuel pump. The fuel tank needs to be dropped down to replace the in-tank lift pump with a new item, and also replace all of the fuel and breather lines which have seen better days. The breather lines from the tank have pretty much perished to dust. The fuel tank is then taken outside and given a clean with some hot soapy water to remove all of the dirt and grime on the outside of the tank. The in-tank fuel pump and sender are removed and inspected. The gauze filter on the pump is split and the pressure hose is also perished. However, the inside of the fuel tank is clean and good to go. The in-tank pump is replaced with a low pressure, high volume lift pump and a new gauze filter attached. The fuel sender is then refitted and the fuel tank bolted back up in the car with some new fuel-safe breather hoses. The external pump is being replaced with the Pierberg high-flow external fuel pump. This fuel pump is capable of flowing up to 360 litres per hour at 5 bar, which is more than enough for our application. Next on the list is the fuel filter, which was only replaced 5,000 kilometres ago, but being a throwaway item, it would be silly not to have a new one fitted.
We're almost done with the VL. Everything's running sweet. Just made a catch can, or modified a off-the-shelf catch can for it and plumbed that up. So we're pretty much done in the engine transmission department. It's all ready to go. One thing that these vehicles really need is better brakes. The VL has probably the worst brakes of any of the Commodores. I don't know why. They're like dangerously inadequate even for a stocker engine. So upgrading it is a must. Fortunately, the Commodore series of cars was very evolutionary, so a lot of late model car parts fit on the early models, so the upgrade path is a matter of going to the wreckers or junkyard and just picking up some parts off a later model Commodore. VT onwards is what we normally use. So we've got a bit of a parts bin selection here of stuff that we're going to use to upgrade it. Importantly, obviously, front brakes, reasonable sized dual piston calipers instead of single, 300mm rotor. So that is a massive upgrade over what they have on them. They have probably like a 250mm rotor or something on them with a single piston caliper. Woefully inadequate, dangerous brakes. This stuff's pretty cheap. You can just get it from the wreckers off the millions of busted old Commodores that are lying around there. You use the VT rotor, which is a slip-on, and there is an adapter that you can purchase that basically looks like a trailer hub that goes on in place of the one-piece rotor and bearing assembly that this model has. So you just bolt on that trailer bearing adapter sort of thing, slip on the disc. This bolts straight on. It all just fits. So evolutionary. It's all made by the same company from day dot to the end of them. All PBR stuff. There's tons of different boosters. This is a VS booster, which is a few generations newer. It's a plastic one. It's just the best fit, I think, in the VL engine bay. So Tom picked that one up. There's multiple different versions of this booster here. There's some triple boosters which are smaller that the V8s had because they had sort of valve covers poking in the way. There's a lot to mix and match to make the thing better. This is a pretty small master cylinder, so when you put the big twin pots on it and also rear discs that it has now, it used to have drums. We upsized the master cylinder substantially. There's a 1-inch version of that's 15/16, I think. This is even bigger again. It also has what they call a fast fill function. So it has 2 different sized bores in it, and that's to give you an initial push of fluid when you first touch the brake. It's sort of designed more for the ABS side of things, but works well with this caliper. This is off a VX, I think it said on it. Yep. So again, newer again, mid 2000s. We just have to move the brake lines around a little bit. It's got the same brake switch on it. This was mounted fairly flat, as you can see by this reservoir, whereas on the older Commodores, it's mounted like that, as you can see by the shape of that reservoir. So again, parts bin, go back to a different reservoir that has the angle in it. I'll just have to swap those over. Bolt this in, bolt that onto it, move the brake lines around a bit, bleed her up, fit the front brakes of course, and we'll be sweet. It'll have actual brakes that are safe, which is a win. These also fit under 15-inch wheels, which is also good. So that is a really good upgrade for any old Commodore. Even if it's a stocker, I'd probably recommend you do it because they really are dangerous. So junkyard stuff, yeah. One last thing to go on, I've just slightly modified and painted. This little bracket, if you're familiar with Commodores, you've probably seen it, just goes here on the strut tower and onto the brake master cylinder. That is very important. These firewalls on these things have no strength whatsoever. If you don't put this bracket on, your foot action on the brake pedal will practically push the booster out of the firewall. So this little bracket, although in factory form it's terribly inadequate, as most of the braking system is on a Commodore, is what stops the movement of it, counteracts your foot force on the pedal. So I've just added a little triangle to it to strengthen it because it's only a bit of tin. Some models it's better than this. There's a few different ones depending on how far out the the booster comes and that sort of thing, but it's don't not put it on for a start, and strengthening in it is also a good idea. It'll give you a much better pedal feel. It's astounding how much that brake booster will move out of the firewall just with your force of your feet. So don't forget it, and best off to upgrade it if you can.
As the engine has been refreshed with new piston rings, it's a wise idea to change the engine oil after it's done a few heat cycles. The final thing left to do on the list is upgrade the front brakes with some later model VT Commodore calipers and rotors. The hubs are also replaced with a complete item that comes with new tapered wheel bearings. Once the brakes are bled, the wheels are refitted, followed by the bonnet. A final fluid check is done and the VL is just about ready for the road.
It's good to go, yeah?
Let's go for a drive.
Go for a drive? Sweet as. How good's that wrinkle red, eh?
It's the best. Just have to lift up the Nova to put the Trans Am under it so we can move the Chimera to get the VL out.
Righto.
Have we told the people about the Trans Am yet?
This is Burt Reynolds' personal car.
That wasn't your best work in the shed then, just there, mate?
It's a brand new engine and a car that I don't own.
So what?
Be respectful, bro.
Hashtag not my car.
That's not how I roll.
Just going for a little cruise. So this has got a tune in it. As Al mentioned before, don't go yahooing and throwing your hands up in the air because you got your car running and go and do skids and rev it to 11T. This has got a tune within the ECU. So the other advantage of the Haltech Elite 750 is it does self-tune.
It doesn't self-tune. It chases a target that you've given it.
Yes,
But
what he said.
just because the engine runs doesn't mean it's tuned. So we obviously have a pretty good idea what we're doing, and we're monitoring. We've got the laptop in the car. We're making sure that the AFR is correct and it's chasing it and it's not running lean when we put load on it. So everything seems nice.
Also monitoring oil pressure here too, so it is a fresh engine. The rings are being bed into the bore, so we've already done an oil change once after the engine's been started, and now giving it a few heat cycles before the dyno. We'll get it onto the dyno, do a few more heat cycles, then change the oil before we go ham on getting it tuned. So
the dyno is actually the best place to run the engine in, because you can do varying loads and really control it.
Yeah.
Like under very controlled conditions where you can monitor everything. So if anything does go wrong, you're not going to lunch the thing. You can just switch it off.
Yep.
And fix it. So always the best place to run the engine in, and also obviously tune it. Street tuning is not what you do. Don't do it. There's plenty of dynos around.
Isn't that called a Barry tune, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
Man, this is actually really comfy to drive, hey? It's like being in a couch.
Still old man spec, so the brakes work really well. I'm happy with them.
Just gotta get that aircon gassed. Go and see Oldcock. Tight diff too, eh?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day here in the Sunshine Coast. Sun's out, not a cloud in the sky.
It's like 38 degrees or something.
Bloody
So
hot. Spotto.
perfect for testing the cooling system, which is sitting at like 80 all the time, which is
Spot on.
probably a bit cold, but it's always good to, better than it too hot. So this transmission's got an overdrive, which is just operated off this power button. When it says power, that means you're in 3 instead of 4. Otherwise it's manually shifted like a lot of other trans is what we've done. It's usually the way to go. It's the cheapest way to go than buying a transmission controller. So
This auto's been built too, yes?
it is a fully built auto, yeah. It does shift very firmly,
Harsh on that.
which is just the way it is because it's got no line pressure control or anything like that. The line pressure has to be set quite high, so you get harsher shifts. It's built for a purpose. It's got a very elastic converter, which does make it quite nice to drive. It'll also make it quite quick when we get to the point where we want to bring it up on boost hard, but we're not doing that now because it's not tuned. Don't drive your car hard if it's not tuned. Really happy with how the car's turned out. It's probably one of the least issuey projects we've done of late. It's has been approached with a good understanding and a good budget by Tom. He knew what he wanted, and he knew that it was going to cost X amount, and he was prepared for that. A little bit of a snag with the engine condition, but
That was a bit hard, wasn't it?
that was not. No one could know that until it was pulled apart. And at the end of the day, at least we know it's nice and fresh, and nice and clean. So that's all good. Also a good story for us, for you guys to watch.
It was cool doing that stuff actually. It's cool to pull down a motor and show the people.
Yeah, well, now you've seen what an RB30 looks like on the
I
inside.
suppose we did it with the Nova, didn't we?
RB30s are common as dirt over here, but we realise that a lot of our viewers aren't from Australia, so it's probably not a common engine anywhere else. Not even in Japan, they didn't even have them there. So it is interesting to have a look at it. And I actually quite like the engines. They're much simpler than a double overhead cam RB, and there doesn't seem to be much drawback of the simplicity of the cylinder head, because they do perform really well despite only having 2 valves and a single camshaft. You save a ton of money with them. They're a lot easier to work on, so it is quite a good engine. So no wonder people have been playing with them since 1986, whenever these came out, and getting good results out of them. Just an iconic engine in Australia, and the VL is also an iconic vehicle. It is one of the cars that is just sort of...
This would be you growing up, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about the VL is it was kind of like a changing of the guard, where technology came into the cars. Previously were just old pushrod engines and stuff like that. This is the first vehicle that had really good technology in the engine management system, and also a good transmission, and the engine was also built to a much higher standard than anything we would have ever seen before. Chirp second.
Roll back into the shed and check it over, eh?
Yeah, we'll have a good look at it, and then I'm going to deliver it to Tom, because I've got to pick up some parts for my project, which is coming up.
I don't know when it's coming
Maybe
up.
next, I don't know.
Maybe I might chop you and get my car in the shed first.
You should have done it already.
Maybe I should have.
Yeah.
Lemon squash?
How about you drive and I'll have a lemon squash?
That's not very fair.
It's fair for me.
Oh, fresh air.
Whew. Notice I've put another Subaru part in here.
You love your Subaru parts, don't you?
Yes, I do. I don't like exposed battery terminals either.
No, it's not good.
Doesn't
That's
make-
what will start a fire.
Makes me feel bad.
Time to see the Hoff.
Yep, she's off to the Hoff in the new year, and we will be there. You can pick one of these up at the MCM store, help support the show. Thanks for watching.
How the hell are you fitting that in there?
I'm no good at editing, but I am a mechanic.
I might leave this side to you.